Now, if we look at Bitcoin's 4-hour chart, again, divergences might form here on the MACD and the RSI, possible, surrounding our test, Bitcoin's average price in the daily time frame and the weekly 50-week moving average. Just something I'm paying attention to on the RSI. Notice the RSI broke below 50 here after we had this attempt to get back above let me just remove the 400 period so you can just see it. We had the attempt to get back above the 50, and then we got it, and then we tried to get above that 200, but it failed. 50 got back above the 200, it failed, and we turned right back below. Now we have the 50 below the 200, price below both of them. We got above the cloud, and then we dropped right back below it. So again, we'll be watching to see, can we get a higher low above this level and around that channel line of the possible bull flag, the channel that we are currently in, which I'm showing you in this video. But I'll be watching to see what happens here surrounding possible divergences. Now again, take a look. Try to get back to a bullish state and trying to get back above the 200. It failed. Pring parameter moved right back into the negative region. We dropped back below the 200, and now the 50 confirmed that. And again, the signals are back to bearish. We've just continued to get this chop. These shorter term trending moves. We have a series of lower highs and lower lows. It's been a lot of chop. A great environment for shorter term swing trading as signals move back and forth, bearish to bullish, but longer term trending move that's likely going to change soon. Again, we still have a downtrend, we still have bearish signals, but a bigger trending move, moving away from this choppiness, would shed light on a longer term outlook for Bitcoin. But right now, pring parameters negative. We're back below the 200 period here. Tried to get back above it. It failed. It got rejection there, and it turned back. Tried to get back above it here as we got the death cross, and we've moved lower. So again, signals remain bearish here in the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin. And just some of my indicators. This looks at the trend right here. It does a really good job. It created this earlier in the year, and it just looks at the trending, the swing moves, the swing moves up and down, and does a really good job of defining them. The momentum tops and bottoms here I've marked associated with that, and right here we got rejection at the 78.6 Fibonacci, and things are bearish, and momentum is bearish, the trend is bearish. So again, watch the video all the way through, and you'll see looking for as far as support, and you'll see the resistance levels that we're turning down off of. The signals are bearish. Outflows to the Bitcoin ETF are increasing, so we might see a bottom surrounding a test of this level right here and Bitcoin's average price, which I'll be showing you in this video. Please consider supporting the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the chart, if you like the indicators, let me know that. The money made on YouTube is through sponsors. I don't have any sponsors. They contact me all the time. I turn all those offers down. A lot of these exchanges want to get you leveraged up. Others want to sell you things. I don't want to sell you things you don't need at markups. I just ask that you support the channel. So if you could take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate it. Let me know you want these videos and you like these videos. They take a lot of time and effort to do. I do need to hear from you in order to make it work. Please take a moment to do that. It would really, really be encouraging to hear from you. Again, signals have been back and forth here. Look at the cloud. Again, the cloud, it was taken out here. Now it's bearish. Momentum tried to turn back in a positive territory, and it went right back into the negative region. So again, the bears are in control. So we can get back above the 100-day moving average, and that is the pink line that you see right there. We got rejection at that 78.6 Fibonacci, which I've talked about. Now here I have the trend and momentum. The trend right here, we've dropped back below this level right here, flipping the cloud, I should say over here, flipping the cloud back to bearish, the little red cloud. You can see it right there, dropping back below that level. Momentum flipped back up here with that move at the upper end of that downward bar, and we took out the green ribbon. So the green ribbon flipped back to red. It remains red. So momentum is the ribbon. It's still red, and we drop back below here, flipping to a red cloud. So again, a lot of choppiness. We're coming into some support levels here. If we break them, take out this level, that's going to be bearish. Signals have continued to flip back and forth correctly. So we'll be watching the support levels that we're coming into. Bitcoin's risk model is still bearish. We are in a risk-off environment. The Bitcoin trend is still bearish. The risk line is still bearish. The bears are in control in the daily time frame, and we are in a risk-off environment with negative momentum. Bitcoin is coming into some VWAP support here directly below and horizontal support from over here. And again, the lower boundary channel line, as you'll see later in the video. We've gotten rejection off VWAP resistance, and again, Bitcoin try to bounce off this area without taking out this low. If it does take out this low, then again, this level down over here comes into play, and the longer term VWAP, support level right here. So again, we've got a shot at a rebound to see if the bulls can step up to the plate for the short term here. But out, you could see again from the lows. Here's what I'm looking at. This VWAP support level we're coming into right now comes down here from the September 2023 low. The low over here is from the low back over here in early 2023. March of 2023, and then this VWAP support from, again, November of 2022, and that's this one right here. Long-term VWAP support levels I'm looking at. If we could continue to drop, buyers could come in this area of support right here, and again, VWAP support right in that area, and the trend line, the lower boundary of the channel. I'll show you on another chart with that, but right now, Bitcoin turned off the purple line VWAP resistance from the peak over here and able to get above the broken trend line. We now have this area here as a key level of resistance now. Previously, when I was telling you Bitcoin is bottoming over here and telling you we're going to the 70,000 area, this is where we turned off this resistance zone right here and that trend line. So if the bulls can find a bottom in this area right here or not, or if we move to take out this level right here, this low right here. VWAP resistance continues to hold. If Bitcoin can get a higher low above this low right here, again, it might find a bottom around this trend line, around Bitcoin's average price, around the 50-week moving average, around VWAP support, around this lower band of the channel. And again, we might move beyond the extremes here, even beyond the lows right here. But it is possible that can mark a short-term bottom, as it did here, here, over here, and here. We could see a short-term bottom try to develop with Bitcoin. Bullish divergences, so something we're paying attention to in this area of support that I'm talking about in this video. As we turned off major resistance up here, we're now coming into some support levels where Bitcoin might try to bounce. If we break these levels, then look out below. That would be extremely bearish. Coming into Bitcoin's average price, we're coming into the 50-week moving average, other support levels, which you'll see in this video. Now, I've warned you that Bitcoin's weekly signals are bearish. This week, with Bitcoin's price, we're seeing the bars actually flip now to red with the trend. We've seen them orange, and we rallied. We flipped the cloud to red. We rallied back up. We got rejection at it here, but now we're seeing a change here in that we're seeing failed rally, and we still continue to have the red momentum line here in the time frame. That's now flipping the bars from orange now back to red. So that's bearish. If it remains that way, there's risk of a bigger drop. Again, we could see attempted short-term bottom at some of the support levels I'm talking about in this video, but the bulls need to step up to the plate at those support levels to make it happen. Again, I've talked about how this is a very long-term bearish signal in that we've seen momentum flip into the negative region. The rally back up gave us a lower high, and we got a lower high here at the center line. So again, momentum continues to be bearish. Again, when we saw the drop over here of 78%, we moved into the negative region and remained there. When we got the reversal bar here, we moved into the positive region and remained there. So now we're turning back down. Unless the bulls can turn this around, the weekly charts, again, Bitcoin's at risk of going a whole lot lower. Signals remain bearish. This bar, I just wanted to draw your attention to that. The bar is flipping to red. Now, Bitcoin's momentum remains bearish. The bars reflecting momentum are bearish. The momentum line had turned bearish. The bearish momentum is being validated by the balance of power being negative. Again, we had tried to rally back up, had some choppiness here, going back and forth, and then turned right back up with momentum, but stalled at the 78.6 Fibonacci and horizontal resistance. Again, getting rejection at the 100 period moving average, but this line representing the short-term swing move is now rolled over and turned red. With the cloud flipping back to red, we took out this line right here and flipped the cloud back to red, and this line representing the short-term swing move is now turning red as well. So there's risk that if we start taking out Bitcoin's average price right here and this low over here, of a bigger drop. If you find support in this area at the lower boundary of the channel just underneath it that I'll show you, again, you can form a short-term bottom. The risk is that we start taking this level out, start taking out this 49,000 level, start moving down towards the rising trend line or towards the 78.6 Fibonacci at 44,000. But momentum signals here, bearish. Trend signals bearish, and again, notice the background's going back to red, validating this. We had this little counter trend, and it's just going back and forth here. Now, here I have the bars reflecting the trend, and they again turned at that same time. And again, we're coming back to Bitcoin's average price, but being validated with momentum going into the negative region. Again, the chart we saw momentum flip. Here I have with momentum, I have the impulse line, and the impulse line we rallied up, turned back down, it turned bearish. Now the trending ribbon is flipping back to bearish. We got rejection there at the 100 period moving average, but this line right here represents the short-term trend. And again, we tried to rally back up above it right here, and we failed, and we're back below it. Again, in order to have things bullish, you've got to get back above that, and it's got to be rising. It turned back to red right here, and it remains bearish, dropping. Some bearish things going on with Bitcoin, but we are coming into another level of support. We'll be watching to see if Bitcoin can bottom out, some kind of recovery, or if it gets a bigger drop, it takes out these support levels. Signals have done an absolutely amazing job of calling the tops and bottoms over and over again. You're watching to see if more bottoming signals form. Keep in mind that momentum is negative, and if bullish diversions can form, indicators like momentum here or the RSI, the MACD, and others. So I'll be watching this level of support. Hey, wanted to give you another update on Bitcoin. Sorry if I sound funny. I've been sick, so I appreciate your patience in listening to my raspy voice. I wanted to share some important things with you. Again, the signals continue to nail it. Now, as I'm making the video, Bitcoin is down. Again, I told you, signals reverted back to bearish. It returned bearish at resistance. What happened? We get this drop. Bitcoin's down 4.60%, down $2,578 at the moment. Now, again, Bitcoin turning down with the stock market, with the jobs report weakening, weaker jobs report, again, recession concerns. I know the jobs employment rate is already predicting, based on triggering the Psalm rule last month and continuing this month, triggering it with the 3-month moving average of the jobs, the unemployment rate being above the low that was made over the last 12 months has triggered the recession. We know that that indicator is extremely accurate. It hasn't been wrong for decades. It missed. We are going to have a recession. Bitcoin is not going to dodge that recession, and that's why I keep saying Bitcoin is likely in a topping process and probably has already peaked back over here, which we've talked about. And again, that's an extremely unpopular thing to say, but if my signals turn back to bullish, then again, I've given other bullish scenarios that could happen, a larger topping process, legitimate breakout. If we can manage to somehow dodge a recession, and see the dollar completely collapse. Again, it's highly unlikely we're going to dodge a recession. The stock market is forming a top. S&P is probably, after this pullback, going to go make a new high. Bitcoin will probably continue to diverge with NASDAQ if we can find support. I'll show you the levels of support I'm looking at. I'll show you the levels of resistance. We've had this choppy trading back and forth, and I told you back over here at the 73,000 area that a top was forming, looking for a move down to where? To test the 100 period moving average. We did that. We bounced off of it, this pink line right here, went back, and we formed our double top. Okay, and over here, called a bottom on May 2nd, the day after the bottom there, which was, again, surrounding the Fed FOMC meeting. We got a lower high at the resistance zone right here, as we talked about at great length and detail at the time. We formed our double top. Our signals began to turn bearish between June 6th and June 10th with momentum, and June 10th to June 14th with the trend signals. And we dropped below the 10 period. That's a red line you see right here. We dropped below it, rallied up to the 20, got rejection. Everybody said it was over. I told you we were just going to get a bounce, and we are getting rejection at the 20 period moving average. And when we got the topping tail, I told you that was it. And we dropped back down. And then over here, my signals began to turn bullish in early July. This was the July 5th low. And again, I told you a bottom is forming, a bottom is forming, a bottom is forming every single video. We're going to rally back up to the 100 period. If we could clear it, then you're going to go to 70,000 and towards this trend line. What happened? We went to exactly 70,000 and to the trend line. Noted again, the signals continue to just nail it. We reversed immediately. The very next day, momentum signals turned bearish. We dropped below the 10 period moving average, and we had this 29% drop in 8 days. And I told you we were hitting Bitcoin's average price here. We were hitting the 50-week moving average. We were hitting VWAP support, horizontal support. And I told you again, a bottom formed. This is the area where the shorts were covering and the buy the dip crowd was coming back in. Told you, be watching the Fibonacci retracements. We rallied back up. We hit the 78.6 Fibonacci. We hit horizontal resistance. We got rejection at the 100 at the 78.6 Fibonacci horizontal resistance. We got rejection at so many important technical levels. Turned down, got a little topping tail there, turned right back down below the 100 period, the pink line. Again, the 100 crossed below the 200 period, very bearish. The 50 crossed below the 200 here. The boys told us how bullish the 50 crossing below the 200 is. Oh, that's extremely bullish in the Moonboy cult. So Bitcoin has now sold off from the 78.6 Fibonacci and coming back down to test this low, which I told you, come back down and find support just above this level or try to take it out. Right now, we're moving towards Bitcoin's average price. You start losing the average price and getting closes below it, staying below it, and taking out this low. That would be very, very bearish. We start moving down towards the 44,000 area, moving back towards the rising trend line, which I'll show you in a moment. The thing to note here is that we dropped below the 10 period. The 10 had tried to get back above the 20. Now the 10's dropped back below the 20. The blue line's the 20. The red line's the 10. The 10 and 20 could not get back above the 50. We still have a bearish alignment of the moving averages. This was just a counter trend. Let me be clear. Unless Bitcoin can get back above the 100, back above the 200, and the 100 gets back above the 200 period moving average, the 200 is a black line, and we start clearing these levels of resistance, this trend line right here, again, the trend line here and here, make the more recent resistance zone, and then the one that we got rejection off of back over here from the March high, again, the peak over here and the peak over here, the resistance between the peak in March and April. Things remain bearish for Bitcoin. Now, at some point, we're going to get a rally back up. We'll be watching to see what happens with it. The question right now is how low do we go? What support levels hold? So we'll be watching that. But right now, you have a bearish arrangement of the moving averages. The 10 and 20 below the 50. The 50 is below the 200. The black line, the 200 is now flattening out. The 100 period, we remain below it. The 100 crossed below the 200 period moving average. All this is telling you information. It's telling you that the bears are in control. Unless we start clearing some of these longer-term moving averages, there's no reason to be longer-term bullish on Bitcoin. you may get a counter trend bounce, but unless you get back above the 100 and the 200 period moving average, Bitcoin's in serious trouble. Now, in addition to all of this, Bitcoin continues to have a series of lower highs, and lower lows. Lower lows continue to dominate. There is a downtrend. Now, there's been a lot of choppiness, and we've seen a drop from this peak over here down to this low over here of 33%. Is now, are we going to resume the decline for a bigger drop? And that's why I'm watching this Bitcoin's average price right here. If we start getting closes below it and you can't get back above it, that's going to be extremely bearish for Bitcoin. So again, the bears remain in control in the weekly time frame. As I continue to say, the bears remain in control in the daily time frame. Moving averages are bearish in the daily time frame. Now, let's talk more about resistance. I want to show you the horizontal resistance. Again, we got rejection off the 78.6 Fibonacci of this decline, which I told you again to be watching that golden pocket between the 61.8 fib and the 78.6 fib. We hit it right on the nose of 65,000. Told you, and again, we've had 8 failed attempts to get above 69,000. 8 failed attempts to get above 69,000. They've all failed. Okay. Bulls have to clear 69,000, which is the peak there from the 2021 high. They haven't been able to do it. Others have been up there. Talk about the resistance. We're getting rejection at the 78.6 Fibonacci. We're getting rejection at the 100 period moving average. Let's look at the horizontal support real fast. Now here's the horizontal resistance. Now when we tried to get above it here, it failed. And we tried to rebound back up, and we stalled right here with this initial bounce at the lower end of the resistance that I talked about, this line right here. We stalled in that area just above it, hitting our 200 period as a 50 cross below the 200 in a death cross when we turned down off of it. Then we rallied back up, and we tried to move to the upper end of this resistance right here, and again stalled there at the 100 period at the 78.6 Fibonacci. Couldn't clear this resistance level at all. So again, Bitcoin continues to have the bears in control in the daily time frame, in the weekly time frame. We turned right back down. Again, the moving averages turned bearish, and now here we are. Could form a bullish divergence as was possible, and try to find support in the lower end of the channel. I'll show you that in just a second, surrounding the Bitcoin's average price right here. The risk is that we come down and we take out this low right here, and we start moving towards the rising trend line and towards the 78.6 Fibonacci from the January low. This is the 61.8 Fibonacci from the January low. We could form a divergence and not take out this low because the RSI doesn't look at the wick, it looks at the close. So again, we could still come down here, form a divergence, but the risk is that we just drop below this level and keep going and take out this low. So we'll see what happens. Look at the RSI. The RSI is below 50. We tried to get above 50 here, tried to get above the 100, and it failed. Okay, you got to get back above that 100 period moving average. You got to get back above the 50 level in order to have a bigger bullish scenario. We don't have that. People don't want to hear that Bitcoin's likely about to resume the bear market. To the people that told us these sell-offs here, and down here, they told us that wasn't going to happen. Since March, we've been hearing, oh, Bitcoin's going to 100,000, Bitcoin's going to 100,000, going to 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, and every single one of the and breakout, and it's just given us a series of lower highs. Okay, told you what would have to happen to get me to turn back to bullish. And again, I've been going back and forth. March and actually January, my signals turned back to bullish. January low, run up, and then they've been going back and forth in this choppiness. What would turn me back to bullish is if we can get above the 100 period moving average and clear these resistance levels I've talked about. See the weekly charts flip back to bullish. We haven't been able to see that happen. Again, it is likely that we're going to see another major sell-off surrounding the coming recession. And again, we know that ahead of the recession, the stock market is likely going to peak and form a topping process, which I believe that's happening. Usher in the bear market ahead of the recession. The Fed will pivot because of the coming recession. We know the Fed is about to pivot September 18th, which again, initially when we get the Fed pivot, the stock market rallies for about 3.5 weeks. It doesn't have to do it that same way this time, but in 2001 it did it that way, and in 2007 it did it that way. But again, you'll get this initial bounce probably with the Fed pivot. They're lowering rates. Market will start getting a much bigger sell-off and usher in the bear market. It's in a topping process right now. Bitcoin is in a topping process right now. It's probably going to get a much bigger sell-off. Now, if we start taking out Bitcoin's average price, that would be extremely bearish, and odds of going back up and testing these highs back up here become much less likely. See what happens surrounding Bitcoin's average price, but again, bears continue to be in control in the daily time frame here and in the weekly time frame. Even if we go lower and then we get a big rally back up into the 100 period moving average, again, if you clear these levels of resistance I'm talking about and get back above the 100 and are able to stay there, then again, have staying power. Unless you can see these things happen, again, the bears are in control. There's no reason to be longer term bullish on Bitcoin unless that can happen. I'm watching some trend lines, and this is one of them. If we continue to see Bitcoin drop and again go down further, you got this trend line right here, which is the parallel boundary to the upper boundary. The bullish scenarios, you have a bull flag right here. Bulls would have their work really cut out for them. They've got to flip everything in the daily chart back, all these bearish arrangement of the moving averages, flip it all back to bullish. They'd have to clear the resistance zone. They'd have to clear this trend line, get Bitcoin back above 69,000, not drop back below it, flip all the weekly signals back to bullish. They'd have their work really cut out for them. So again, you know exactly what needs to happen in order for things to turn around. The resistance level's got to be cleared. We got to clear the 100. Unless they can do that, the bears are in control. We have this trend line down here, this blue trend line right here. And again, Bitcoin's average price is there. We might form a divergence and go even just beyond this level and form it again. The RSI only looks at the close, so we might form a divergence right there. That is certainly possible. And then again, can we rebound back up and get another lower high, or even try to come back up to this level if we can clear the 100 and again get a possible move back up here to try to test the trend line one more time. That is certainly possible, something we don't want to rule out. If signals can turn back to bullish down here somewhere, the risk is we take this level out, we start taking out the 400 period moving average, Bitcoin's average price right here, and the low that is made over here. Same is true for the MACD. The MACD could be forming a bullish divergence, whether that is, again, somewhere above this low or taking it out, we'll see. But a bottom could develop, a short-term bottom, and then we'll see how big of a rally we can get. So I'm just telling you, signals might try to turn back to bullish soon if divergences try to form on the daily chart, maybe on bullish signals on the 4-hour chart. These trend lines have been absolutely amazing. The trend line up here, again, up off the January low, it broke and we sold off, and then we had a downward trend, and then it broke and we rebounded back up, and it formed another trend line here, and then that broke and we sold off, and it formed another downward trend line, and when that broke and back tested, we went higher, formed our double top there, that broke, that trend line there broke right there, and again we sold off. And again, just a beautiful example of the power of trend lines on Bitcoin. Absolutely amazing. We formed a bullish divergence down here on the RSI right there, and went back up and again broke this trend line and rose, formed a rising wedge, our trend line at 70,000, and then boom, broke that trend line, and we saw that drop over 8 days of 29% in 8 days, broke the downward trend line, went back up here. And again, from this low to this low, we formed another trend line. That trend line broke, and now this trend line is dominating right now. And when this trend line breaks, again, we could get a bigger move back up or a more shallow retracement back up. But if we continue to have it in play and we start taking out these levels and this trend line and this low, then again, this can give us a much bigger sell-off right now. But the power of the trend lines here on Bitcoin are absolutely amazing. Now, the risk is that Bitcoin drops below this low and moves towards this trend line of support right here, or our 78.6 Fibonacci from the January low at 44,000. So here's the deal. Bitcoin rallied up here, okay, and we take the Fibonacci's from the January low. We came back down, we bounced off the trend line here, and then we broke it, and we hit our 61.8 Fibonacci right there at 49,000, and just above our January peak at 48,000. Okay, we bounced, tried to back test it, and again turned down, and then we did it again. We rallied back up to test the trend line again and got rejection there. So right now we're coming back to test this low. If you take it out, the risk is you come down to the trend line, or you come down to this 44,000 area, the 78.6 Fibonacci from the January low. If we can bounce at Bitcoin's average price, 2-week moving average, we may see an attempted recovery. A bullish divergence form, even without taking out that shadow. As I've said, you could still move lower on a closing basis, but not take out that low, because the RSI doesn't look at the wicks, it looks at the close. The risk is, if we keep selling off, you either come back to the trend line here. This is going all the way back to the higher low that's set up in early January after we had the November low for Bitcoin. And again, the risk is we come back to that trend line or the 78.6 Fibonacci. So some levels to be aware of should we try to break this level. But coming into some support levels, been talking about in this video, after getting rejection off of the resistance levels. And again, you got rejection at the trend line, you got rejection at the 78.6 Fibonacci, you got rejection at horizontal support, you got rejection at the 100 period moving average, others, but that's just to name a few, and got rejection at a lot of important technical levels. If Bitcoin were to drop down to this level and then rebound back up, it could be that we just, if we get a bigger drop of Bitcoin, that we'd come back, towards the 200 period moving average on the next rally, remain below it. We've lost the 200. These crossed below the 200. The Moon Boys are telling us how bullish that is. That's very bearish. But in the Moon Boy cult, up is down and down is up. Now, I warned you about the weekly chart. Again, Bitcoin follows the 100 in the daily. It follows the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame. Things are bullish. Below it, things are bearish. The 20-week is the blue line. The 10-week is the red line. Bitcoin came back to the 20 and we bounced. Tried to get back above the 10 and it failed. And we dropped below the 10 and 20. And as we did, they got the bearish crossover. Okay? We rallied back up. I told you down over here, Bitcoin is bottoming. Bitcoin is bottoming. And we're going to rally back up likely to 70,000. We did. We rallied right back up to 70,000 on the nose. We got that spinning, or that doji. I told you the doji could be a week evening star if we get a big sell-off the following week, which we did. And again, dropping back below our 20-week moving average. Tried to get above it. It failed. The 10 never got back above the 20. We turned back down. We dropped down sharply by nearly 15%. And again, drop back down. This was that 8-day drop where we dropped back down to the 50-week. I told you the bulls, the shorts covered here at key support. The dip crowd came in. And again, we had the rally back up. I told you to be watching the 100 in the daily, the 20-week in the weekly. And we came right back up to the 20-week. Tried to get above it. What happened? It failed. And we had the rally completely given back. And we dropped nearly 11% here. Dropping back below the 20, back below the 10, 10 still below the 20, and the 10 and 20 still pointing down. We're now at the 50, so you might try to get a bounce surrounding the 50. It is a technical level of support. Here we overthrew it. Maybe we do the same. Again, you have Bitcoin's average price. You've got the 50-week moving average. And again, we're coming into some gap support as well. We'll see if we get a bounce or do these levels break. At some point, if you start breaking levels of support, you're going to get a bigger drop. We've had this choppiness. Eventually, you're going to get a bigger trending move, either up or down. Right now, the bears are in control in the weekly time frame. The bears are in control in the daily time frame. But this is bearish. I told you these are counter trends. Again, we predicted a rally here to 70,000, predicted another rally off of the 50-period moving average. That was correct. But we're trapped between the 20-week moving average. Bitcoin's trapped between the 20 and the 50. The 20 is declining. The 50 is still rising. Again, we're bouncing. We bounced off the 50 so far, testing it right now. But we've had rejection at the 20, rejection at the 20 since we broke it over here, tested it, failed, tested it, failed. And now again, you start losing the 50 and staying below the 50. That's going to be extremely bearish for Bitcoin going forward here in the weekly time frame. Currently for the week, we're down 6.34%. Last week we were down, again, nearly 11%, getting rejection off that 20-week moving average.